What is up, everybody? It's the Don with the Don Tech, and today I wanted to give you an overview or a comparison video of different cables that I have. And it's going to be with the stock cables that come with your power supply, the BitFenix white and black cables, the Corsair specialized cables, and my newly acquired CableMod white cables. Don't worry about using the stock ones. They're too rigid, they're too, they're bland, and they're just plain, and, don't use them. So it's really just going to be between the three Corsair specialized ones that I have. The BitFenix white and black, CableMod white, and the Corsair red. If you want to see my reviews on the BitFenix or CableMod cables, check it out in the link below. I'll go ahead and put a link there to the video where I did a review of both of those types of cables. So having said that, let's get into the comparison of just two of the cables at the start. And it's going to be the ones that I've already kind of done in a different video, but we're going to be looking at the BitFenix cables versus the Corsair cables. And these are both in the SATA ports. That was the one that I just pretty much grabbed. I figured that'd be the most universal one. So with these two cables themselves, we're not worrying about length. We're not worrying about, oh, this one's better because it can reach a little bit further. You can do more stuff with it. If you need the utmost in customization, you need to measure out in length how long the cable has to be, and then you have to buy a custom-made cable. These are all pre-made kits that I have here. So from the simple bend test that I did on both of these here, you can see that the Corsair one stays pretty straight in the way that it was. The cables are all kind of lined up. The BitFenix one is kind of cables all over the place. They're not as streamlined, straight-lined. I don't know what's actually causing them to kind of do that, but here you've got it straight and it's a small amount of wiring, and then it's solid, small amount of wiring, solid. This is kind of wires going in, wires coming out, wires going in, wires coming out. It's not really set to a point where it's stopping per se. So even when I try to straighten these wires themselves, they don't really want to stay. And it almost feels like the end ones are longer than the ones in the middle, whereas these are all going to be the same length itself. We compare that to the CableMod cables. It's kind of a mixture between the two. It doesn't do what Corsair does. It's just a cable going in, cable coming out, cable going in, cable coming out, but it stays straight a little bit better. And if we do the bend test as well on this, you can see that it's very similar to the Corsair bend test. But back to the BitFenix, we try to straighten it out and do the bend test there. It kind of stays a little bit, but the moment you move it, it's going to kind of get out of whack. Whereas this tends to also get out of whack, but not as bad. It's just one of those things that I noticed when I was building with the BitFenix ones that you can check out in another video, that they just kind of went all over the place. Something to show here is that's all nice and straight, nice and neat, right? This is kind of all bent all over the place. It's like they are different length cables, and I think that might be a big problem. And you got this black cable right here that's going down that is all wavy. And these things are really difficult to iron out and get straight and make them stay straight. The smallest thing will get them to just bend back and then kind of be all misjoined. The CableMod ones, I noticed, don't actually really have that same problem. They're all, you pull on them, they're all the same length, which is nice. You don't have a feeling where the end or outer ones are a little bit thicker or longer or shorter, whatever it might be. And then when you're trying to turn it a little bit and trying to move them, they kind of move together in the way that they should. So this is bringing two ends together. They kind of bow very nicely. The BitFenix ones, already just from this, what the heck? Where do these even go? How do you straighten this one out? It's like they went in one way and then they came out in a different way. So this is what would be considered the straight cable end to end, and then we try to bow it in. Each cable's kind of doing its own thing. I'm bowing it in the same exact way. Bow it this way, they don't stay together. So that was something that, it's a nice kit. I really like what it comes with, but I'm really impressed with the CableMod ones in comparison. Because again, like I said, you just push it right like that. They just stay together. I mean, that's a lot nicer. If we do the same thing on Corsair, they're pretty much going to stay together. They don't have as much room to move or separate, and that might be why they did this a little bit smaller, so they kind of stay together a little bit nicer. So it is definitely a nice premium feel to it. On the feel of it all, these actually have more of a rough texture to them, whereas both of these have a very soft, smooth finish. These are a little bit rougher. The BitFenix is a little bit rougher, and the CableMod is probably the softest cables. It's very nice, very soft, very pleasant to work with. and they kind of, you know, work with you a little bit more, and the way that they bend and everything because of which. So the material they use is of better quality. And these you're able to kind of bend, I guess, into place. So you get a solid bend in essence, but when the cables separate like that, it doesn't do you much good. And that looks terrible for two reasons. One of them is going to be the alternating colors. Not a good idea. Don't alternate colors. It's just, it's a good thing in concept, but doesn't really work. But secondarily, just the cable types themselves, they're not that good at quality. If I do the same thing here, where I try to bend it and everything, they stay together a little bit more and everything. If you hold it in the same way, it stays together a little bit more. It's still separated because you're not doing a professional line or bend or anything, you're just kind of squeezing it. And these here, they also put a zip tie, Corsair does, on that, so it kind of as well limits the separation. So they kind of took the happy medium route. If you don't know if you want to go with a BitFenix one or CableMod and you just want something that will work with your power supply, and you have a Corsair power supply itself, these are all for Corsair, just get the Corsair kit. It was about the same price. It's something that, you know, it's kind of a less hassle, less of a headache sort of factor because the way that everything kind of all works together. Now, unfortunately, I don't have access to a 24-pin connection of the Corsair red ones themselves, and the reason these are all a different color is because I changed my mind on what I want a theme to look like. But anyway, but what I do have to work on is going to be the CableMod cables that I got, a 24-pin for that and a 24-pin for the BitFenix cables. This isn't a length comparison, but you can see that the BitFenix ones are a little bit longer. If you need something specific, buy something specific. The biggest thing I noticed when I was doing my review of the CableMod cables is that they only have one strand, one lead that has two cables with it, whereas the BitFenix one had several. So in a similar way then with some of the stuff, just showing kind of the difference still in the cables and how they retain their shape. They blend together really easily, and you can kind of a little bit more easily mold them, and they stay a lot nicer. And so it's something that might be a little bit difficult to see on the camera, but in person you can see that they kind of all line up a little bit nicer and are staying together and are trying really hard to stay together. The BitFenix ones, however, are bending in a whole bunch of different ways, in a whole bunch of different directions. And that could be exacerbated because it is a black and white alternating color. So they're very strong contrasting colors. You know, you can bend it out of place and then you can see, wow, that one's really out of place. You turn it back around, you can see that black cable is really out of place. We go over here, we try to do the same thing, take this cable out, try to bend it out of place and everything. It's still, yeah, okay. So that's actually pretty bent out of place as well. You can see that. So on this longer cable, that's something that actually is exacerbated on both cable types. I'd say it's not as much of a sore thumb, but that could be because of the color difference as well. It's all one flat color, so you're not going to notice it as much. So all in all, my rating of all of these, if we're going on a scale from 1 to 10, let's say, the Corsair stock cables would probably come in at a 2, 3 maybe. They get the job done, they work fine, but it's just kind of it's not going to be anything special whatsoever. You're not going to use it for anything unless you just need to build something for somebody. The happy medium, probably a 6 or a 7, is going to be the Corsair cables themselves that are made by Corsair, the custom sleeve cables. They definitely have some room to improve, in my opinion, in the way that they feel, the way that they bend. You know, you can see that they're just kind of, they don't bend over anything. They're very stiff and very rigid, so they require specific bends and specific loops to kind of get them to go where you need them to go. So it's a happy medium though. It's definitely not bad. The challenge is when you buy these though, you have to buy the kit and plus the 24-pin connector, so that's kind of a pain. Whereas the next runner-up, the BitFenix ones, these come with 2 24 pins for different alternations of power supplies that you may have, and every other cable that you need for about 90 bucks. So 90 bucks for this is a really, really fantastic deal. Get a flat color though. I would not go alternating. Get a flat color to make it nice and a little bit easier for you, but just beware of how these cables are bending and how when you try to get them to go together, it really doesn't look all that well if it's something that, you know, you have the dual colors. If you have a flat color, I think I said that 50 times now, it's going to look a little bit better. And so those I'd say are probably about a 7 or an 8 in relation to the out of 10. And then the CableMod ones, these are premium cables. They feel extremely nice. I'm really pleased with these cables and everything that they provide and what they came with the kit. It was a very low footprint kit, so that means that on shipping they don't have to spend an arm and a leg. If you saw my BitFenix video, that was a huge box and everything was in its own individual plastic containers. This was just in a Ziploc bag, essentially just like this, in another mesh bag that was in a small box. So on the rating, I would give these a 9 to a 10. And if CableMod makes the kits for them like they did with this one, if they make the kit and it's easy to purchase, I would just go and buy that, probably for my next build as well. If customers wanted it, I would probably go for the CableMod as well. I'm very impressed with these. I'm looking forward to building with them, and I'm something that you'll be able to see the progress as I'm building with these particular cables. But overall, 9 to 10 out of 10 for these cables and the other ones to follow. So thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was semi-helpful, maybe give you some insight as to what cables would be a little bit better for your particular build. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section down below. I'll reply to each and every one of you. If you have any suggestions as well for anything else you want me to review, go ahead and feel free to hit me up on Twitter. Maybe I can turn it into a video. Give this video a like if you thought it was helpful. Give it a dislike if you want your computer to break on you. And subscribe to see more videos in the future. Remember, the Don's got your back, and the Don is out.